Web3 is when you open your computer and you start making money. This is a quote by Vance Spencer, who was recently on the NLW podcast, The Breakdown. I want to use this quote because I think it's incredibly useful and important to define what Web3 is and how it relates to Twitter and what we think Musk can do with Twitter, and also how it relates to the open society and Karl Popper. I think all these things are interrelated. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's May 8, 2022. This is Krim Delko. It's a Sunday. There's no update for the year. We're down 28.3%. The market is down 13.8%. We're underperforming by 14.5%. So Van Spencer is a venture capitalist. He invests in Web3 technologies. And let's use our definition of what blockchain is and then what Web3 means. So Web3, according to Van Spencer, and we absolutely subscribe to that, is when you open your computer, you start making money. What that means is that the blockchain solves for identity, and with identity, you have trust, you have network effects, you have monetizing stuff, you have ownership, you have all of these ingredients that are necessary to make money. How is that done? Well, it's done by blockchain technology, and what that just means is that the chain continuously knows what is happening and who is doing what and who is who and what is where, and all of these things are taken care of. So that's in a nutshell how we see the blockchain technology and Web3. And Van Spencer's quote is very, very useful when it comes to the question, what is Web3? He actually used the word metaverse. We're just going to say Web3 because let's not get into what is the metaverse and all that. Web3, so the next level of the internet solves for trust and identity. About a year ago, we had a podcast where we asked the question, which trust problem is your business solving? And we said that the future of any business is going to be defined by this, the answer to that question. And we still think that that is actually a fantastic way to think about business and the future of business and the opportunities of Web3. And I think Van Spencer, with his quote, really underlines that also, because it just says the following. If you can solve for trust, then you can allow people to have ownership, and with ownership, you can create tokenomics, and with tokenomics, you can engineer a certain, let's say, network or society or any kind of gathering of people. And that is, in a nutshell, also what Karl Popper is trying to say in The Open Society and Its Enemies. Now, I just started to read the book, and the beginning of the book goes all the way back to Plato and the Greeks and all that. So he's trying to explain what historicism means and how people think that life is either predetermined by some sort of historic law or it is dominated by tyranny. And I think the solution that Popper is going to offer in the book is going to be something like a piecemeal, bottom-up social engineering that is continuously replacing situations with better situations, existing institutions with better institutions, and so on and so forth. And in that sort of realm, I want to now discuss how I see Web3 and the opportunity for Twitter, and I think what Musk could do with Twitter. First and foremost, like if I read the headlines, let's say The Economist and Time Magazine and all that, everybody says, let's say there's a headline in the Economist that says Musk wants to engineer free speech. Now, that's fine. The question is, what is free speech? Free speech, according to our definition, is people expressing their opinions without a central authority deciding what is and what isn't. Now, the difference between that and anarchy is that there is still something deciding what is and what isn't, and that is hopefully going to be Web3 or a blockchain type technology. Now, when we say that, what we say is that there's a certain algorithm or a platform or a protocol, actually protocol is probably the right word, deciding how things progress. And to use Popper's analogy here, it is not a fixed definition or anything like that. It is piecemeal, it is changing, it is adapting. And the best way you can adapt is if we create an incentive system, and that's where tokenomics kicks in. And I think this is sort of the vector space that we see Twitter in. Twitter is a bunch of users that have a network that's called Twitter, and they have a certain culture on that network, which is they express opinions. Now, how can Musk create a free speech platform and incentivize good behavior? He can create a Web3 type technology that solves for trust and allows people to monetize their tweets. So incentivize people to participate in the network, and this is in line also with the other podcast I had a few days ago that discussed the person that was CTO of Coinbase. I forgot the name. He spoke about that, and what he spoke about is that Musk should sort of airdrop a coin, a Twitter coin, and therefore create a token and incentivize good behavior on Twitter. And I think that is very much in line with the idea of Van Spencer, which is Web3 is when you open your computer, start making money. So what does that mean in plain English? It means that we want to have a token that is being used as an incentive system to create behavior on Twitter. That is number one. Number two, of course, the big question then is, okay, what are the tokenomics of Twitter? How are we going to do it? And this is something that I think is a fantastic field of research. Any young person that is thinking of grad school or PhD, I think, in the space of economics particularly, and comp sci, I think should be thinking about tokenomics, because it is one of those things that you really have to think. It's kind of like algorithm design. So I think it's an application to social engineering from the world of algorithms. It's an algorithm that designs how things should evolve. So in a sense, it's kind of like, if you think about it, the one algorithm that we all have right now since Adam Smith and the Enlightenment is the algorithm of freedom and capitalism, I think, more or less, which is an algorithm which just says that, look, if you do certain things, then there's a certain outcome to be expected. That, to me, is an algorithm. And I think we could have along those lines, very similar tokenomics within Twitter. For example, if you tweet, you get compensated for that tweet, and you get punished if the tweet doesn't achieve certain things, and you get rewarded if it achieves certain things. And I don't have the tokenomics in my head right now. What I'm saying here is that the tokenomics themselves, I think, should be part of what Twitter is working on. And when Musk says he wants to invest in engineering and talent and all that, this should be part of it. So before you start programming, you should think about what you're actually trying to achieve and create a framework, a social framework, or a social economic framework by which then you create tokenomics design or game theory design, or whatever you want to call it, that then creates this incentive structure, the algorithm that drives this society, namely the Twitter society, towards a goal. And that goal, if that is free speech, in the sense that there's no authority, but speech can evolve and speech can still abide to certain rules, i.e., let's say we don't have violence, we don't have certain parts of the pornography space and all that stuff that we don't want to happen on these platforms. We can disincentivize that. We can punish people monetarily in a sense that they lose their tokens, basically. They lose their right to be on Twitter by not abiding to the system. The same way you lose your right to participate in the economy if you go bankrupt or if you're a criminal and things like that. Now, having said that, of course, this is all very big picture, and when it comes to the nitty-gritty of the daily business of, let's say, Twitter, it is much different, and therefore much more difficult to implement. But I think what's important here in this particular episode for us is just to put these things together. We started reading The Open Society and Its Enemies by Karl Popper, and I think the main message in the book is that there is a way to engineer social systems that is for the better, and that is the piecemeal approach that replaces ideas with better ideas, structures with better structures, that has change of power with no violence. And I think the same culture has to be adopted either within Twitter or in any other Web3 platform that is trying to build a social network based on trust. I think if it's not Twitter, somebody else will succeed. Actually, Van Spencer, who's a venture capitalist, is kind of negative on Twitter just because he thinks that it is way too much Web2, the culture and all that, and that probably the success of a Web3 social network has to start somewhere in a garage and then build an innovation stack around that. He's not using those words, but I feel like that's how he feels. Of course, he's also talking a little bit his own book here, in a sense that he wants the piecemeal approach also because that's what venture capitalists do, versus the big picture approach where rich people buy companies and then transform them into something. That would be the approach that Musk is now trying to do. Now, we at Orange Capital Partners would much rather Musk do the former. That means invest a couple of $1 billion in a VC-backed company that is trying to build a Web3-based social network. But that is unfortunately not what Musk is doing. And since he's decided to buy Twitter and be CEO of Twitter Interims, I think it's more useful for us to participate in this endeavor and offer our ideas. So If Musk is listening, Elon, what we think the right path is to follow the Web3 doctrine, which is if you open your computer, you start making money. Think about that, and then think about free speech as a place where you can express opinions without central authority being decider who is, what is and what isn't, and think about the tokenomics of this system in the sense that you want to have this piecemeal approach towards a society within Twitter, but you also, of course, want to make sure that the law of the land and all of that stuff is being observed. And I think the best way to achieve that is by having the appropriate tokenomics within the system so people can make money, are incentivized to participate, and also have a disincentive to do things that you don't want them to do. I think there's also an analogy here with the sort of earn-to-play system within games, even though that has taken a little bit of a backdrop recently, just because like everything else, I think money is a bit dry right now, and sort of all these fantastic future ideas are being put up on the back burner. But the idea of participate to earn is still a very good one. And like, again, this is Web3. I open our computer, I start making money. It's doable because we have all the ingredients to have a monetizable system within a social network. We have identity, we have trust, we have monetizable actions, and we have ownership rights. These are all things that are interrelated, but necessary to create a system where, in the sort of spirit of Ben Spencer, you open your computer, you start making money. To summarize, The Open Society and Its Enemies by Karl Popper, I think, is a massive blueprint for Web3 because it creates a framework by which we can think about what kind of culture we want in, let's say, a social network, which let's just substitute social network with society. So any kind of gathering of people, either in the digital space or in the real space, is a society. And the open society is an open society, which means open, it is open for new ideas, and ideas should be such that new ideas get implemented when they have better solutions to problems, and power has to be transferable in a non-violent way. This is what The Open Society and Its Enemies is. This is the message by Karl Popper. The way you achieve this is by piecemeal change, by incentive systems. Incentive system is a word that is used in economics, and I think it's a good word because it just means that you want to have a system, an algorithm that creates certain constraints under which you can transform a system from A to B and get desired results. I mean, you can even use quantum physics here. The Hamiltonian is nothing but a system of constraints that creates a transformation from one system to the other. And the Hamiltonian in the Web3 world is tokenomics. So the tokenomics are, the tokens are the thing that actually is being used, or money if you want. And the way you're being rewarded, let's say if you tweet, is by you get more tokens, or your tokens grow if you do things that are in line with the big picture of what, let's say, Twitter is trying to achieve. If Twitter is trying to achieve free speech, then it just basically means that free speech is a Hamiltonian on its own, which means there is certain things that are happening. Let's say opinions are being expressed, so there's a transformation of the network every millisecond that somebody tweets, but there's also constraints that you want to disincentivize violence, you want to disincentivize lies, you want to disincentivize misinformation, you want to disincentivize, like I said, certain parts of pornography and all that, and all that defamation. All the things that are bad, you can disincentivize them by taking away tokens from people and giving them if they either do things that are good or uncover things that are bad. So again, I don't have a solution for the tokenomics of Twitter here. What I'm suggesting is simply that we just think about the tokenomics, and that Elon particularly and his team around Twitter think about that. If all of that works out, we could have a network based on Web3 technology, which is based on the blockchain. So we know we have ownership rights, we have identity, we have monetization, and we have the transfer of, we have trust, excuse me, we have trust. This is the key. So the four big pillars of Web3 is identity, trust, ownership, and monetizable. Those are the four things that also, in accordance with Van Spencer's quote, allow you to open a computer and start making money. Twitter could be a conduit for that. Twitter could create a lot of new technologies and ideas that can also be transferable to other companies, namely Tesla, in particular the insurance business. We see a huge opportunity there to use Web3 technology to create all new kinds of insurance businesses around the Tesla form factor, and of course that in itself could be a massive opportunity. Thank you.